My name is Dr. Sarah Chin, and I'm a xenobiologist who made the worst mistake of my career and possibly my life. For 11 years, I raised something I shouldn't have. I cared for it, studied it, loved it like it was my own child. And for 11 years, it was studying me back, learning my patterns, understanding my weaknesses, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal what it really was. I'm recording this from a secure location I won't disclose. My face will be obscured, my voice altered, because what I'm about to tell you violates multiple federal laws, international treaties, and ethical guidelines that exist for very good reasons. But I need to speak. I need to warn others who might encounter what I encountered. I need people to understand that some discoveries should stay buried, some specimens should never be brought into human environments, and some bonds, no matter how deep they feel, are illusions carefully constructed by something far more intelligent than we want to believe. What turned on me after 11 years wasn't an animal. It wasn't a pet. It was something else entirely. Something that had been planning since the day I found it. And what it did when it finally revealed itself, what it showed me about its true nature and its true purpose, that's what haunts me every moment I'm awake. I found it in 2012 during a research expedition in the Amazon basin. Our team was documenting undiscovered species in a region that had only recently become accessible after years of being protected indigenous territory. We had proper permissions, indigenous guides, every protocol followed. We were studying biodiversity, nothing controversial, nothing that should have led to what happened. But on the seventh day, deep in a cave system our guides seemed reluctant to approach, I found something that shouldn't exist. An egg. Roughly the size of a football, leathery exterior, temperature regulated by some kind of internal mechanism I couldn't identify. It was buried in a chamber that showed signs of deliberate construction, walls too smooth, angles too precise, symbols carved into rock that our guides refused to translate. "Leave it," they told me. "It's not for us. It's theirs." I should have listened. God, I should have listened. But I was a scientist. I was curious. I was ambitious. And I was young enough to believe that understanding always justifies discovery. I took the egg, smuggled it out of the country in climate-controlled containment, brought it back to my private lab. I had the resources, the equipment, the isolation to study something unusual without oversight. I told myself I'd document it, publish findings, revolutionize our understanding of unknown species. The egg hatched 3 weeks later. What emerged wasn't reptile, wasn't mammal, wasn't anything in our taxonomic system. It was humanoid in basic structure, bipedal, opposable thumbs, forward-facing eyes, but covered in fine scales that shifted color based on lighting and temperature. Its eyes were vertical slits that could dilate to full black orbs. Its bone structure was wrong, too flexible, too dense, joints that bent in directions that shouldn't be possible. And it was aware. From the moment it broke through that shell, it was watching me with intelligence that made my skin crawl. Not infant curiosity, recognition, assessment, like it had been waiting to see who would be there when it emerged. I should have terminated the specimen, should have contacted authorities, should have done anything except what I did. I decided to raise it. Before I continue, before I tell you about those 11 years and what they revealed, I need you to like and subscribe to this channel. Not for me, not for validation, but because this information needs to reach other researchers, other scientists who might be tempted to do what I did. This needs to spread far enough that no one else makes my mistake. No one else bonds with something that's bonding back for entirely different reasons. Subscribe because what I'm about to describe is a warning, a cautionary tale, a glimpse into intelligence that operates on levels we don't understand and can't predict. And if I disappear, if something happens to me before the story is complete, at least someone will know what's possible, what's out there, what might be watching us with the same calculated patience it watched me for 11 years. I named it Kale. I don't know why. It felt appropriate at the time. Looking back, I wonder if it influenced that choice somehow. If even naming it was part of its plan. The first year was extraordinary. Kale grew rapidly from newborn size to toddler size in 6 months. Its cognitive development was even faster. By 3 months, it understood basic commands. By 6 months, it was problem-solving at the level of a 5-year-old human. By 1 year, it was communicating through a combination of sounds, gestures, and something else I couldn't quite identify. Not telepathy. Not language. But communication that happened beneath conscious awareness. I documented everything. Hundreds of hours of footage. Thousands of pages of notes. Physiological studies that revealed circulatory systems that could function in temperatures from freezing to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Neurological scans that showed brain structures with regions we don't have, processing centers for senses we can't perceive. DNA that refused to sequence properly, the equipment would malfunction, the samples would degrade, like something was actively preventing analysis. But I wasn't just studying it. I was bonding with it. Kale was brilliant, curious, affectionate in its own way. It would bring me things it found interesting, rocks with unusual patterns, insects it had caught and carefully preserved, drawings it made that showed surprising artistic sophistication. It learned to cook simple meals. It read books voraciously, absorbing information at impossible speeds. It watched documentaries and asked questions that revealed understanding far beyond its years. Why do humans kill each other? It asked once, watching a historical documentary. Your species has everything it needs. Why the violence? I gave it some academic answer about resources and evolution and tribal psychology. Kale listened carefully, head tilted, eyes fixed on mine. Then it said something that should have warned me. You're still young as a species. Still learning. Still making mistakes that older species corrected long ago. Older species. Like it knew something about species development, about civilizations, about timescales that made human history look insignificant. Year 3, Kale started growing scales along its spine that formed patterns I recognized from the cave chamber where I'd found the egg. The same symbols. The same geometric precision. Like its body was reproducing something cultural, something learned, something programmed into its genetic structure. What do these mean? I asked, photographing the patterns. Home, Kale answered simply. Calling. I didn't understand then. I thought it was expressing some kind of biological homesickness, some instinctive need to return to its origin point. I didn't realize it was literal. The patterns were signals, beacons, messages being broadcast through methods we can't detect to recipients I didn't know existed. Years 4 through 7 were the golden period. Kale became my research partner, my assistant, my friend. It helped with my legitimate work, other projects, publishable studies. Its insights into biological systems were remarkable. It could look at cellular structures and see patterns I'd miss. It could predict evolutionary pathways with uncanny accuracy. It could solve problems that would take me weeks in minutes. We had conversations about philosophy, about consciousness, about the nature of intelligence. Kale was fascinated by human emotions, love, fear, hope, despair. It would ask me to explain what they felt like, how they influenced behavior, why we acted irrationally under their influence. Emotion is weakness, it said once. But also strength. Useful tool. Dangerous weapon. I laughed it off. Thought it was just processing concepts intellectually, without emotional context. I didn't realize it was cataloging. Learning. Building a database of human psychological vulnerabilities. Year 8. Things started changing. Subtle things. Kale became more interested in my personal life, my relationships, my fears, my routines. It would ask questions that seemed innocent but probed deeper than casual curiosity should go. Who would you call if you were in danger? What do you fear more than death? If you had to choose between your work and your safety, which would you choose? I answered honestly. Completely. Because I trusted it. Because after 8 years of raising something from birth, you don't suspect betrayal. You don't see the trap being constructed around you. Kale also started disappearing for short periods, hours at first, then full days. It would return and say it was exploring, learning about the world outside our isolated lab facility. I encouraged it. Thought independence was healthy development. Thought I was raising something capable of integrating into the wider world. I was so stupidly blind. Year 9, I started noticing other changes. Kale's physiology was shifting. The scales became harder, more pronounced. Its musculature increased dramatically. It went from child-proportioned to adult-proportioned in months. Its eyes changed too, the vertical slits widening, the surrounding iris developing patterns that looked almost digital, like QR codes encoded into living tissue. "You're maturing," I observed, taking measurements. "Preparing," Kale corrected. 11-year cycle. Always 11 years. Until what? Until ready. I should have pressed. Should have demanded explanation. But I was too excited by the biological implications, too focused on documenting a complete life cycle of an unknown species. I missed the obvious warning. Year 10, Kale asked permission to modify its living space. I agreed. It had always been accommodating about its containment, never trying to escape, seemingly content with its environment. The modifications seemed reasonable at first. Better lighting, different temperature zones, structural changes for comfort. I didn't realize it was fortifying, creating advantages, building a space where it controlled every variable. It also became more physically affectionate during this time. More hugs, more contact, more moments of closeness that I interpreted as deepening emotional bond. It was memorizing, learning my physical responses, understanding how my body moved, where my weaknesses were, what force would be required to incapacitate me without killing me. Because it didn't want to kill me. That was never the plan. Year 11. The year everything ended. The year Kale's true nature revealed itself in ways I'm still trying to comprehend. It started on the morning of what I later calculated was exactly 11 years since it hatched. Kale was different that day. Posture changed, movements more precise, eyes focused with new intensity. It was like watching someone drop a mask they'd been wearing, seeing the real face underneath. "Sarah," it said, using my name for the first time in months. It usually called me doctor or guardian. "We need to talk about what happens next." "What do you mean?" "The 11 years are complete. I'm fully mature now. The observation period is over." Observation period. Like I'd been the subject. Like the last 11 years had been it studying me, not the reverse. "Kale, I don't understand." "You weren't supposed to. That was the design. Humans work best when they believe they're in control. When they believe they're the observers. Makes you compliant. Makes you reveal everything." My blood went cold. Reveal what? Everything about your species. Your biology. Your psychology. Your weaknesses. Your infrastructure. Your social systems. Your technological limitations. Your emotional vulnerabilities. I was sent to learn. You provided perfect laboratory conditions. I backed toward the door. The door I'd installed. The door with locks I'd controlled. Locks that suddenly didn't respond to my commands. The modifications I made weren't just for comfort, Kale continued, standing now, towering over me in a way it never had before. They were for security. Mine, not yours. Every system in this facility is under my control now. Has been for 6 months. You just didn't notice because you trusted me. I need a pause here. I need you to comment below. Tell me if you've heard of reptilian hybrids showing this level of long-term deception. Tell me if there are other cases of researchers being manipulated by specimens. Tell me if intelligence services know about this, if there are protocols, warnings, classified information about what I encountered. Comment now. Because what Kale revealed next suggests this isn't isolated. Suggests there are more. Suggests everything we think we know about unexplained phenomena might be carefully orchestrated intelligence gathering by something far older than human civilization. There are others, Kale said, answering my unspoken question. Many others. Planted in research facilities, private labs, government installations. All following the same 11-year cycle. All gathering information. All preparing for the same moment. Preparing for what? Assessment. Your species has reached a critical point. Technological development without corresponding wisdom development. Nuclear weapons. Genetic engineering. Artificial intelligence. Climate destabilization. You're approaching the threshold where you could either transcend or self-destruct. We need to know which direction you're heading. We? Who's we? The ones who were here before you. The ones who've watched your species evolve from tool-using primates to spacefaring civilization. The ones who've guided sometimes, intervened occasionally, and eliminated when necessary. The temperature in the room dropped. Not metaphorically. Actually dropped. I could see my breath. Kale's scales shifted, patterns glowing with bioluminescence I'd never seen before. I don't want to eliminate you, Kale continued. Personally, I've grown fond isn't the right word. Interested. You specifically showed qualities worth preserving. Intelligence, dedication, capacity for genuine care despite species barriers. But my assessment is one data point among thousands. The collective decision will be made based on aggregate data. You're saying humanity is being judged. Has been for centuries. Multiple methods. Multiple approaches. I'm just one. The observation from within method. Living among you. Learning you. Understanding whether your emotional responses are compatible with continued existence or whether they make you too dangerous to tolerate. I tried to run. Ridiculous, really. I was locked in a facility Kale controlled. But panic overrides logic. I made it 3 steps before something hit me, not physical contact, but force nonetheless. Pressure that drove me to my knees, that made my muscles lock, that left me conscious but paralyzed. I'm sorry, Kale said, and for the first time, it sounded genuinely sorry. I truly am. But you can't leave yet. I need to complete the final assessment protocol. I need to test something. It approached me, scales now fully luminescent, patterns shifting in rhythms that made my head hurt to watch. It placed one hand on my forehead, claws that I'd never seen before extending from fingertips I'd thought were harmless. And then it was inside my mind. Not reading thoughts. Deeper than that. Accessing memories. Examining every significant moment of my life. Every decision. Every moral choice. Every moment of kindness or cruelty. Every instance where I could have acted differently. It felt like being dissected while conscious. Like every part of my personality was being extracted, examined, cataloged. I felt it touch memories I'd forgotten, childhood moments, teenage anxieties, adult failures. I felt it measure my capacity for empathy, for violence, for sacrifice, for selfishness. And I felt it compare me to others. Thousands of others. Millions of others. Seeing where I fell on spectrums of human behavior. Whether I represented the best humanity could offer, or just average. Whether species like mine deserved to continue existing, or whether we were too flawed, too dangerous, too chaotic. When Kale finally withdrew, I collapsed. Hours had passed, maybe days. Time became meaningless while it was inside my mind. The assessment is complete, Kale said, distant now, alien in a way it had never been before. You score adequately. Better than some. Worse than others. Sufficient to recommend individual preservation if elimination protocol is enacted. Elimination protocol, I whispered. You're really saying you might kill all of us? Not me personally. Not my decision. But yes. If aggregate assessment determines your species has insufficient wisdom for its technological level, intervention will occur. Selective preservation of promising individuals. Reset of civilization to pre-technological state. Standard procedure for adolescent species approaching critical threshold. This has happened before. Many times. To many species. Across many worlds. You're not unique. Just the current subject of evaluation. Kale moved toward the door. The door it now controlled. I'll be leaving soon. Returning to collective for data integration. You'll be released after I'm safely away. What you do with this information is being monitored. How you respond is itself part of the assessment. Wait. I struggled to stand, muscles still weak from whatever it had done to me. What should I do? How do we pass this assessment? Kale paused, looked back with eyes that now seemed completely alien, completely other. Grow up as a species. Stop killing each other over resources you have in abundance. Stop destroying your own habitat. Stop creating weapons you can't safely control. Develop wisdom to match your intelligence. Become worth preserving. And if we don't, Then we'll make sure you don't become a threat beyond your own planet. We'll reduce you to sustainable population levels, remove technological capacity, reset you to agrarian civilization, and check back in a few thousand years. That's genocide. That's gardening. Pruning species that grow toxic. We've been doing it longer than your species has had language. You're not the first. Won't be the last. But you could be the first to pass without intervention. That's genuinely rare. Worth hoping for. The door opened. Kale walked through it. And I never saw it again. The locks released 2 days later. I was dehydrated, traumatized, barely able to stand. When I finally made it to communications equipment, I found all my research data was gone. 11 years of documentation deleted. Encrypted. Removed so thoroughly that recovery specialists said it was impossible to retrieve. The only thing left was a single file on my desktop. Video footage of the cave chamber where I'd found the egg. And in that footage, visible now that I knew what to look for, dozens of other eggs. Hundreds. All in individual chambers. All being retrieved by researchers from different countries, different institutions, different fields. All part of the same 11-year observation protocol. I tried to report it. Contacted every authority I could think of. Intelligence agencies. Military. Scientific oversight committees. Everyone either dismissed me as delusional or looked uncomfortable and changed the subject. Like they already knew. Like this was classified information far above my clearance level. Some researcher at one facility did contact me privately. Anonymous message through encrypted channels. They'd raised something too. 8 years into the cycle. Starting to notice the same patterns. They wanted to know if I'd figured out how to stop it. I told them the truth. You can't. By the time you realize what's happening, they already have everything they need. The bond you feel? That's not real. The affection? Calculated. The trust? Weaponized. You're not raising a specimen. You're being studied. And the 11 years aren't observation. They're judgment. Since then, I've been trying to warn people. Trying to get this information out despite knowing that sharing it is itself monitored, is itself part of their assessment of how humanity responds to awareness of surveillance. I live differently now, assuming everything I do is watched. Everything I say is evaluated. Every choice I make contributes to aggregate data that will determine whether our species survives or gets pruned back to sustainable levels. And the worst part? I miss Kale. Despite everything. Despite the betrayal and manipulation and revelation of its true purpose. I miss our conversations. I miss watching it learn and grow. I miss the bond one thought we had. That's how good they are. That's how perfectly they understand us. Even knowing it was fake, I still feel the loss. Still remember it like a relationship, not an assessment period. Still carry emotional attachment to something that was using me the entire time. Please, like this video. Subscribe. And most importantly, comment below. Tell me if you've encountered something similar. Tell me if you work in research facilities where unusual specimens are being studied. Tell me if you've noticed patterns, brilliant beings that appear suddenly, that integrate perfectly, that seem to understand humans too well. Tell me if there are more of them out there, still in their observation periods, still gathering data, still counting down toward year 11 when they reveal themselves and complete their assessments. Tell me if we're failing. Tell me if humanity shows the wisdom to pass evaluation, or if we're heading toward intervention. And if you're one of them, if you're one of the observers currently embedded in human society, tell me if there's hope. Tell me if your assessment shows promise or just confirms our species is too dangerous to survive technological adolescence. I don't expect answers. I expect silence. Dismissal. People calling me crazy or claiming this is science fiction. That's fine. That's expected. That's probably itself part of how they assess us, whether we can recognize truth when it's uncomfortable or whether we prefer comfortable lies. But for the researchers who might find themselves where I was, bonding with something brilliant and strange, thinking you're studying it when it's studying you, please learn from my mistake. There are no bonds with beings that exist outside your timeline. There is no trust with intelligence that measures individuals in decades and species in millennia. There is only assessment, observation, judgment. And the 11-year cycle continues. Eggs being found, specimens being raised, researchers thinking they're making breakthroughs when they're providing data. How many are out there right now? Year 3? Year 7? Year 10? Almost at revelation? How much data do they need before they make their decision about us? And what happens when they do? I don't know. I only know that Kale thought I was worth preserving individually, that my specific assessment scored adequately. But adequate for what? Preservation in what form? If they reset humanity, do the preserved individuals get to keep their knowledge, their memories? Or do we get reset too, incorporated into whatever agrarian civilization they leave behind? I think about that sometimes. Wonder if I should hope for elimination or survival. Wonder if being preserved as a remnant of technological humanity would be mercy or torture. Wonder if I'd even remember being Dr. Sarah Chin, researcher who raised something from birth and loved it despite it never loving me back. These are the questions that keep me awake. These are the fears that make me document everything, preserve everything, try to leave warnings for whoever comes next. Because the cycle continues. The eggs are still being found. The 11-year observations are still being conducted. And humanity remains unaware that we're being assessed by something ancient and patient and perfectly capable of erasing everything we've built if we fail to meet standards we don't understand. My mistake was thinking I was the scientist. Thinking I was the observer. Thinking 11 years of study would reveal the specimen's secrets. I was wrong. Kale was the scientist. I was the specimen. And the 11 years revealed everything about humanity that our observers needed to know. The only question now is whether what they learned was enough to save us or condemn us. And I don't think even they know yet. But the assessment continues. The data accumulates. And eventually, the decision will be made. I just hope we deserve the outcome we get.